Good evening, everyone. ESBR Boxing here. Elliot Grigg with another video, tying in, I suppose, part of our preview slash review series over this festive period. Joined by my esteemed colleague, Danny. Danny, how are you doing, brother? Are you well?
All is good with me, mate. Just had a very late dinner. Feeling ready for this, ready to tackle
You're
some
ready to
boxing.
go. I can tell you're sitting there like a coiled spring. And what we're going to do is we're coming to this is what as I said, we've got preview shows, we've got review shows. This is a preview show. This is falling into that category. We're looking at a selection, I suppose, of high profile fighters, what the next year will look like for them. And this evening, Danny and I are going to take you through what we believe might possibly, it's hard to predict, obviously, with the fight we're going to mention here, what 2023 looks like for heavyweight champion Tyson Fury, who obviously in 2022 fought twice, victory over Dillian White, victory over Derek Chisora. But there's obviously been a lot of noise about where he's going to go next year. Is there going to be a unification fight against Alexander Usyk? If so, when? And then also there's been a lot of talk about potential, the avoidance of retirement. Where does he go, etc., etc. So Danny and I are going to take you through that. And I'm going to start off by questioning Danny on this primarily. Danny, do you see Tyson Fury? Let's just get straight into it. Do you see Tyson Fury or Alexander Usyk being the next fight for Fury?
I'm proper 50-50 on it. The talks, the rumblings from everyone are good. Team Usyk seem to think it's done. It's just waiting on Fury's signature. Frank Warren said they've already agreed a fee with Saudi Arabia to host it. It's just something about Fury's demeanour when he speaks about Usyk, for me, just gives me that wee sort of inkling it out. Like, it was after the fight, no mention of an injury before the Chisora fight. And then he says he had like a shoulder or a bicep injury, whatever it was, and he would need 6 to 8 weeks off after surgery. And like, they're chatting about it. Even him, after him saying that, the people around him and the people around the fight have been talking about like a end of February, early March date. You know, like, well, this doesn't add up. But I really, really, really hope so. Like, for me, it's like, without doubt, one of the like 2 or 3 best fights can be made in all the boxing. I know people chat about Fury and AJ and amongst, the British public and sort of general sports fans, that's obviously still the biggest one. But like, if you're a boxing fan, this is the heavyweight fight you want to see. We've not had an undisputed heavyweight fight over 20 years since Lewis Holyfield. Never been any in the four belt era. These are the consensus 1 or 2. Like, without doubt, you wouldn't get anyone arguing anything to the contrary. So I just really, really hope we see it. And I'm not going to say I don't think it'll happen, because I really, really can't tell. But I tell you what, if it doesn't happen, you know whose door to lie blame on. Team Usyk himself, Krasik, Igis Klimas, they're some of the most straight up people in boxing. They don't duck fights. You know, every one of Usyk's big fights, they've been in the opponent's backyard. Bradis in Latvia, Gassiev of Russia, Hunter in the States, Bellew over here, Josh over here. Like, it's not going to be him that's shying away from a fight with Tyson. Not going to be. It's not him with the track record of chatting absolute baloney. Like, so I just really hope it happens, mate. But I'm not 100% sure. I'm not.
No, I think that's a brilliant summary, to be perfectly honest, and I mirror a lot of what you were saying there. Was that when he started mentioning about elbows, and you're thinking, "Oh, come on now, mate." That is the sort of thing we think. I know they've set the deadline. It's Crash set the deadline for like March the 2nd or something for the fight as well. They obviously
Yeah,
want it
I
quite
think
soon.
so.
I think even I know we're focusing on Fury on this video, but even for sort of Usyk, it's like I don't really want to see him fight anyone else. That seems to say. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd watch him fight Wilder, but I'd watch him, of course, I would. But I'd watch him take on some other heavyweights in the division. But almost like we just want this. I want to see this. I mean, we don't have to go too far into it, but I mean, I've stated previously I actually think the Fury would beat Usyk just because not necessarily saying that I think he's a better boxer. I just think the size difference is not really it's so profound that the talent difference in talent won't be able to sort of make that leap. Is
Yeah.
that an opinion that you share, Danny, or just looking at it the way, obviously, like you said, Usyk, decorated champion, got into everyone's backyard, battered them, obviously an elite boxer. Do you think he'd be able to get it done, or do you sort of lean towards Fury in the fight?
He's got a great chance, 100%. But I would lean towards Fury, just as it's sort of the sort of consensus opinion over here that he's just too big. And it's not just the size, obviously, it's a combination with how good Fury is, how good his ring IQ is, like the ways he can adapt in a fight. And I think the swinging factor is the fact that despite his size, Fury's got the engine to match Usyk, and I think he would just plough forward, lean on him, tire him out, and you hesitate to stay stop him because there's never really been an indication that Usyk's come close to really getting stopped in any fight, but certainly wear him down enough to win majority of the rounds, sort of in the last 2/3 of the fight. But again, definitely, wouldn't be betting my house on it. Like Usyk could go in there and make him look stupid. There's sort of no reason to put a ceiling on how good Usyk is, and it's obviously a complete factor in Wilder, White, and Chisora, and you're going in there with Usyk, like it's regardless of the size difference.
No, I agree. But you mentioned earlier in the video, and I'm going to pick this up on this now. Obviously, the post-fight with Fury and Chisora. There was another man standing on the ring apron that night with Usyk. There was Joe Joyce. A little bit of noise there. But let's be perfect. I don't think we're speaking out of turn here when we say that Joe doesn't necessarily have the kind of persona which is screaming for fights in the way that other sort of fighters do. Do you think there's any chance of that fight, Fury Joyce, happening, or is that just, do you reckon, a way of sort of profile raising for Joyce to be on the apron there?
No, I think that's the fight they'll probably make if Fury Usyk doesn't end up happening. And it's not a bad consolation prize, definitely not. I mean, again, with Joyce, you can't really rule him out of any fight. Don't get me wrong, I would favour Fury to win, but Joyce, he's not going to knock out Joyce. And Joyce has probably got an even slightly better engine than Fury. It's certainly close. And yeah, I think there's definitely a possibility you could see that fight. Obviously, Joyce is due a big fight. He's more than earned it at this stage. I know he's got the interim title to one of Usyk's belt, but both with Queensberry and Frank Warren, of course, you would imagine it still wouldn't be a difficult fight to make. And Joyce's profile is sort of steadily growing. A lot of my casual mates or whatever you want to refer to it as have started mentioning more.
That's a polite way to refer to me, Danny. Yeah, thank you.
A lot of my friends who have a fleeting interest in boxing, a lot of them watched the Parker fight and were like, "Fuck, who is this?" You know what I mean? That sort of way. So it's still a big fight. It probably would sell at Wembley if done in the summer. So I would love. I mean, the ideal year is you sort of see Fury, Usyk, then Fury Joyce. Probably wishful thinking, but it's definitely. I think that's the fight they'll make if the Usyk.
Yeah. And I think your point actually there about engines is actually kind of key. I still think Fury would have enough to beat Joyce, just because I feel like he's got that 12-round engine. We've seen that previously. But again, I don't think he's stopping Joyce. It'd be interesting to see. Obviously, he has, he stopped Wilder, etc. Would he try and go into that way? But I just still think, Joyce is a tough night for anyone, isn't it? Do you think? Joyce is obviously also moving into mandatory position for Usyk's belt as well. Do you think? Do you think Usyk would also go through Joyce? Do you think that's a fight that you'd back Usyk to come through? Obviously, they fought previously in the amateurs, or do you feel that at this stage in their careers that I mean, a lot of people have said that Joyce could essentially just keep continually walking forward and somehow grind him, or do you think that's just sort of wishful thinking?
No, I think Joyce would be live in that fight as well. You mentioned the amateur fight, and Usyk completely took him to school, but that's obviously completely different to I know it was World Series of Boxing, so it's slightly closer to professional, but the 12 rounds and the smaller gloves would both be things that favour Joyce in that. But I would. You see, the thing is, just as I'm sort of saying this, Usyk is 35. I know Joyce is 38, but Usyk more professional rounds under his belt, and I would still say that Usyk could probably bank enough of the early rounds and then maybe weather a sort of late onslaught from Joyce to maybe win an 8-4 or a 9-3 or something like that. But again, if you're still in there with Joyce coming into the last 4 rounds of fight, you're in for a tough sort of 12 minutes before you hear that final bell. Any heavyweight.
No, I totally agree. And I think there's also there's another name which I'm kind of reluctant to mention, but I feel like we do have to mention. Is obviously I've talked about obviously Wilder fighting Ruiz, and then obviously potentially the winner of that coming through and fighting Fury again, which could lead to Wilder Fury 4. Is that a fight that you have appetite for, or would you essentially, do you feel like that was so conclusive you wouldn't really like to see it again, and you'd much rather see Fury, if he didn't fight necessarily Usyk, to still fight someone else around the top 10 rather than fight Wilder again?
I mean, I'll take anything after Fury Chisora 3. I can know what you're saying. You obviously want to see a bit of continuity and different names in the resume, because what does 3 wins against the same man do as opposed to 2? I suppose you could apply that logic to the Chisora fight as well, but I don't know. Obviously, if you believe what you hear from Eddie Hearn, then Wilder Joshua could be a possibility for 2023, and I think that makes more sense for Wilder. It's probably a bigger money fight as well, and I think that would be the fight. I think if we were speaking for both of them, who we would really like to see, But it's strange. You sort of go through who's in those mandatory positions, and you sort of wonder how it's all going to play out if Fury Usyk doesn't happen, because you get the WBA. They've already said they're going to really put the brakes on him, and I think they're well aware he's nowhere near ready for a shot at Usyk. Joyce is with the WBO, but yet Joyce Fury seems more likely, and then you've got the WBC, which looks like it would result in Wilder Fury 4, and then the IBS. So I think the most likely outcome is you would see Usyk Hrgovic, and then Fury Joyce, and then hopefully if those two happen, it would be Wilder Joshua, which again would be a decent consolation prize. But it really all sort of hangs on whether Fury Usyk happens or not, how the division plays out next year.
Well, Danny, not only are you learned and erudite and knowledgeable when it comes to boxing, but you also have some sort of clairvoyant powers there, because I was going to ask you actually how you see it playing out, but now you've also given an answer. What I'm going to say to you is to finish on this question. So we'll try and finish on a high. So the first two, I say let's take Fury fighting twice next year. The first two are the fights that you think we'll see, and then when you give me the two fights that in an ideal world you would see. And we'll finish in an idealised view of where 2023 is going.
Right. What do I think will happen? Right. I'll be an optimist. And I'll say it'll be Fury Usyk in the first half of next year. And would it be Joyce after that? And then maybe, I'm trying to think of top rank I've got, maybe like a Makhmudov or something, like a wee sort of gimme towards the end of the year. Jagba if he comes through Rivas potentially, and I would obviously want to see Fury Usyk as the main one. Fury Joyce is like the dream scenario. Obviously, you'd ideally want to see more than 2 fights in a year, but I think it'll be Fury Usyk, and then Fury and like a Makhmudov or a Jagba or another one. I suppose Fury will have to start picking up those mandaries, won't they? It'll be him, Hrgovic, and him. Yeah. So it's too difficult to call me. Let's just say I hope we see Fury Usyk, and then I'll take fucking anything else after that. Step in with him after that.
No, to be honest with you, Danny, I kind of, like you said, you made a very valid point there, which was, we want to see Fury Usyk next, but also we'll take fucking anything after Chisora Fury 3. So frankly, if he wants to fight Makhmudov, I'll watch that as well.
Boxing fans are just like a fucking abused wife at this stage, honestly. It's like semblance of positivity or a good fight, honestly.
Right, guys. On that note, yeah, thank you, Danny. So so as I said beforehand on the introduction, we've got obviously numerous content coming out of this period. This was obviously our look at what 2023 is like for Fury, but we've also got other ones focusing on AJ. There might be some overlap there, focusing on Canelo. Hopefully there won't be any overlap there, but you never know with Canelo when he keeps moving through the weights. Others on Inoue. We've got obviously, like I said, the reviews of the sort of fight of the year, the knockouts of the year, the upsets of the year, who's going to be British champion next year, all those sort of things coming up. So guys, as usual, leave some comments below. Let us know how you think Fury's going next year. Even let us know how you think 2022 went for Fury. Thumbs up, if you think we did well. Thumbs down if you didn't. Fair enough, we'll take thumbs any which way we go. And I'd like to say thank you, Danny. Thank you for joining me again and talking so eloquently through the future of Fury. Thank you guys for watching.